Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Sean Zervis, Technical Evangelist at CTC, and today we're going to talk about room data sheets. We're going to go over a comprehensive introduction to this particular tool on the project suite. So the room data sheets here is built around creating views, laying out sheets. It's already tedious enough with this whole process of doing this by hand. It's usually a lot more efficient to go through and do it with some kind of automation. Maybe you select some rooms, knowing some views that you want to build, and so this tool is going to help us streamline that entire workflow. What we're going to go over today is how you get access to the room data sheets. We're going to take a look at the interface of the tool, define some basic view settings and the order in which they'll appear in the sheet, and then we're going to actually generate some views and some sheets automatically using the tool. Since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, we're going to jump in live into Revit. And as always, if you have questions while I'm talking about this tool set, I encourage you to just drop them into the questions window, and I will attempt to answer those while I'm talking about the tool itself. I like to answer questions live, if at all possible. So we're going to take a look at the project suite. We're looking at room data sheets. It's up here on the CTC software tab. If you've got an older installation, it might be called the Revit Express Tools tab. But up here on that tab, project suite, these tools that are in green, one of those licensed tools is the room data sheets tool. When you open up this tool, the room data sheets, it's going to probably have nothing over here at all. In fact, if I delete all of these rows, just go in here and grab all of these. I think I can grab them all and delete them all. This is what you're probably going to start with. It's going to have nothing selected on the top. It's going to have some basic default here for sheet numbering and naming. Maybe a prefix, maybe not. This might be blank, and it's probably going to start with 1 over here with an increment of 1. I recommend going through and setting this up exactly as you'd like to see it, which is I personally change my sheet naming and numbering to be the room name that I'm going to be picking. And by the way, for those of you in the world of MEP, if you look in the top left corner here, this is rooms and spaces, or I should say rooms or spaces. So if you do have spaces and you're trying to do, I don't know, electrical closets or mechanical rooms, pump rooms, and use this to help you automate the creation of those views, this can work well for that as well. Primarily, though, most people are using this to create room data sheets for architecture in like medical facilities or hospitality facilities. And so when you pick rooms, you can pick as many as you'd like. Down here, it's going to automatically name your sheets. And what I've got set up is name and number. And instead of putting RDS, you might want to call this out as enlarged or data sheet or whatever. And you can put in little parameters about the views by putting bracket and the parameter name and then a close bracket. And then I'm putting an underscore and I put bracket, number bracket, so I can have the name and number a part of the sheet name. And then I've got room data sheets here as my suffix, just so we can fairly quickly identify them, but you can call this out however you'd like. I'm prefixing my sheets with an A. And I'm starting my numbering at 801. And that's important because down here, I do not already have any 800 sheets in my list right down here. So all of my sheets should be appearing right after my details, and it will show up as my data sheets. Of course, you could put them anywhere you'd like. That's just the closest numbering schema that's open, and I can predict there's nothing there. You can choose whatever you'd like. Next comes the task of defining the actual views right here. Now I'm going to open up in a moment here an already pre-configured set of views. But before I do that, I want to show you exactly how you can add views of your own and how you can configure them, what types of options you have available. So let's add a row. When I click add a row, you have the ability to choose a number of different view types here, including things like key plan. So this can help you generate an actual key plan of sorts and identify where in the building you happen to be located. There's a layout option down here for page and row breaks, and I will definitely use this, especially when I'm selecting multiple rooms. I use the page break frequently. But up here, I'm going to choose all the different types of views, and I'm just going to start at the top, and I'll add a few of them. I'm going to do a 3D view. I'll do a basic floor plan. I'll skip ceiling plan for now. That's in my saved settings. I'll do elevations, and I'm going to do a schedule. Again, you can certainly feel free to go through here and look at all of these yourself. But I'm going to go to a 3D view and add that to my list. I'm just going to put a single 3D view on my sheet, and it's going to put it wherever it belongs in the project browser, assuming my view template isn't controlling that. If I wanted to, I could select something here, like putting this in enlarged plan views or whatever. If your view template right here is actually set up properly, what I consider properly, it will automatically put it in the proper grouping over here anyway. For me, I'm going to be using this 000 presentation view. I don't have a lot of quality view templates for my 3D views. Actually, let's do architectural presentation 3D. I don't even know if this is a correct one, but I'm going to use this. So the scale that I'm going to be using, in the case of a 3D view, scale is a little less relevant, but it'll at least get me ballparked to the right size. I'm going to choose a 1/4 inch equals a foot scale. You can override with some other custom scales if you need to kind of modify these values. I'm just going to leave this as it is, use the default value. There's an option here for offset. The offset property determines how far outside the boundary of the room the scope box or section box will be. In my case, for my 3D view, I want it to be at 0. I don't want it to offset at all. Most of my other views, I'll do some kind of an offset. For my 3D view, I don't want context around because then I end up with walls blocking the view itself. So I like to crop directly. You also get to choose for a 3D view the direction from which you'll be viewing it. In my case, I'll use southeast. You can obviously choose whatever view orientation you want. And then you can choose a viewport type to be used when this view gets placed on a sheet. So all of these options, a lot of them are very similar from view type to view type. So let's add another one. I'm going to add another row. Let's do a floor plan. This floor plan is going to be my enlarged plan view of the room. It's going to actually create the view with some offset, in my case, around the boundary. What I typically will do is, in the case of a normal room, I'll do 3 feet or 2 feet to whatever the units are. And you can know your units for these measurements here by looking right there. The dimensions in my project are set to imperial, and so this is giving me my units in feet at this point. If I was using metric, most likely this would be set to meters or centimeters, possibly millimeters, and you could type in whatever the value is here. You don't have to put the units of measure into the offset value. Just type a number, and it will use the units that are mentioned up there. So in my case, 2 feet. There's also the ability to modify the cut plane. Now again, if I'm using a proper view template that has cut plane preset, that won't matter. But if you're not using a view template, or your view template does not have the cut plane specified, then you can force it here to something else. Like in my case, I like my floor plans cutting at 4 feet. For the view template specifically that I'm going to use, not sure if it's going to actually need that cut plane or not, but I'm going to use my floor plan enlarged view template. All right, so it's going to use the same naming convention sort of that I've got up here, name and number. So it puts name and number for my view name, and so it's going to call this out as whatever room name, number rather, whatever name. In fact, I'm going to swap these two around. Just cut this, Control X, paste it over here because I like name first, number second. That's just a personal preference. Get rid of that space at the beginning. Put an underscore in here so that it's more similarly matched to what's going up on top. And I'm going to call this enlarged floor plan. I'm going to copy this so I don't have to keep typing things over and over again. So I'm just going to steal that. But again, if I needed to, depending on where this template goes, I could change the browser organization. In this case, it'll probably go to an enlarged set over here automatically. And my scale will be set probably already as well, but just in case, I'm going to go ahead and set this to 1/4 inch equals a foot also. This process, you set this up, and then eventually you can save the configuration so you don't have to keep doing this manually over and over again. In my case, I'm going to do a couple more of these just so you can see a couple more examples. Elevations are a special case because I don't necessarily want to add a single elevation for each direction that I want. You could do that, but I don't necessarily want to have to do that. In my case, for my elevations, when I'm doing multiple elevations, you can actually choose the direction this is going to face. The default is for all boundaries of the room meeting some length requirement. And that actually gets specified up here in the room. There's a minimum length for the room boundaries that you can specify room by room. So if you've got a little 1 foot corner cut out of the room from a little like pilaster or something, you can exclude that from this list. Or the alternative there is you can do all true directions, north, south, east, and west, or all oriented directions. This is the north, south, east, and west related to projects north as opposed to the true north. You could do oriented specific views if you wanted to, true north, or individual 4 views, or oriented individual views. That all can work. One note about this, I want to point out this one here one more time, all boundaries meeting length requirements. This one is key because if you do have curved walls in your building, in a room, this can actually sort of assume a straight elevation along the full length of a connected wall set. Again, as long as each of the wall segments are longer than whatever that minimum boundary length is. I usually set that to like 2 feet, and then that usually gives me pretty reasonable elevations for my rooms. It tries to default to the shortest wall in the room that it finds, but sometimes it's not quite right. So you can go through there and specify that if you want to. In my case, once again, I'm going to do all true directions, and that's all I'm going to need. And again, you can go up here and choose whatever view templates. All the other options are pretty much the same here. So I can do like a presentation elevation with whatever scale it is I need, 1/4 inch equals a foot, whatever, basic elevation sheet. Let's see here, one more view type before I continue on. Add another row here. I'm going to add a schedule. So in my schedules over here, I have a schedule that is called room data schedule. This is a multi-category schedule. I've already included in it a filter for the room number and name, rather room number, that's what I'm going by in my case. And that room number field is not visible in the schedule, but room data sheets will automatically read this schedule, and if it understands that room number is in any way in use inside this schedule, that it will try to filter automatically by whatever rooms I'm picking. So in this case, I can get a furniture schedule or a room data schedule of sorts on my sheet automatically. So in this case here, let's do that schedule. Where is it? Room data schedule right there. Again, I can choose browser organization. This is meaningful in 2019 plus because 2019, actually 2018 as well, has the ability to organize schedules by categories, which is pretty cool. I'm not using that here, but certainly you could if you wanted to. And once again, just making sure that my naming convention is similar, number, name, and view type. Let's see, what did I put up here in my floor plans? Yeah, name underscore number. I probably should copy that around consistently so I'm getting a consistent naming convention here. So paste that in. For my 3D view, floor plan view, elevations, same thing. I want to use that same naming convention. I can also specify that here in my view and sheet naming conventions. Let's do one more right here. Paste, name, number, however you want to set it up to you. Okay. You also have the ability to do row breaks here, and this is important for when you're laying out your sheets. Let me show you why. Let's go pick a sample room. From one of my floor plans, I'm going to do a basic layout of what we've got going on right here. So let's say pick a room. Let's pick the women's room down here. Finish my selection. In that selection, I could have picked as many rooms as I'd wanted. Now, when you pick these rooms, it's going to do some pre-generation of the views on the sheets. I didn't tell this to automatically refresh, but if I do refresh this, you'll see it just stacks them up horizontally until it matches whatever my layout options are here. So it's using my title block, it's using whatever margins I have set. So in my case, 1 inch off the top left and bottom, and 4 inches off the right. And then I've also got row and column spacing inside of here. So spacing between the views left to right and spacing between my rows. That's all been set up already. And so this is what it's laying out. The way that I want this though is I want my 3D view, my floor plan, in the future my ceiling plan, all to be on the top row, and then I want to have my elevations all together on the next row, and then I want the schedule at the very bottom. So to do that, I'm going to add a few row breaks into my sheet layout. And this way I can control a bit better where these views go. I'm just going to move this up to just before the elevations and just after the elevations. So basically the elevations are in their own little cluster of views. So if I refresh this preview again, you'll notice that it goes 3D view and floor plan, all of my elevations together, and then my section or my schedule view. So that way I control that. If I was picking multiple rooms, I would also want to make sure down here at the bottom that I had a page break so that between individual rooms that I'm dealing with and all the views it generates, that it puts a page break between each one of them. That's how you can kind of control exactly how your sheets, or pretty much exactly how your sheets are laying out. So since I've got this all set up already, let's see what, well, you know what, let's actually load that configuration that I made a little earlier. It's going to actually overwrite all these views here. That's fine. Let's pick the one that I made earlier today and see how this lays out. So I've got basically all the same things set up. The difference is I've also added in a reflected ceiling plan view. My options are all pre-configured, so if I refresh this preview right here, it should have that room. It should go through and reconfigure this, and it's going to give me all of the views with all of my settings, and I think my elevations actually have boundary offsets on them. No, it doesn't. Zero offset. Fantastic. One thing I didn't point out when I was doing these multiple elevations here, I was telling it all true directions. I didn't talk about this. For my elevations specifically, I put my offset at 0. The floor plan and the RCP, I like having some context around it, so I give it an offset of 2. I mentioned that earlier, but the elevations specifically, I changed my offset to 1, and I changed the cut plane offset to 3. What that does is it actually goes to the face of the furthest back wall, and it offsets you 3 feet back. That's where it's going to cut through the view, and it's going to then offset 0 from the edges of this elevation on all directions. So it'll go 3 feet back from this wall, 3 feet back from this wall for all of the true directions in my model. All right, so this is all ready to go. All I have to do is tell this to create my sheets for me. In this case, I'm doing one room. But when I click Create Sheets, it's going to run through and process all those views. It's going to make them all, and it's going to then place all of them on my sheet. In this case, you'll notice it's aligning all of the tops of my views, so the better my views are set up, the better my actual elevations are, my view templates are set up, the better it's going to lay out on the sheet itself. But this has built that view, that sheet with, in this case, all 8 views placed on it. When I close this out, my actual sheet's going to look very much the same as this. So close this. Let's go find that sheet. It should be in the 800 series, I believe. Yep, there's my 801 women's _ 126 room data sheets. And as I open up this particular sheet, it looks like I got to adjust my spacing a little bit better. This view over here obviously is going to my title block, but it generated all of these views. There's my 3D view with my presentation settings. There's my 2 floor plans with whatever the offset of grid lines are around that. My individual elevations, and the reason why these are a little bit shorter and why it's not quite lining up well is there's no grid lines running through these, and so therefore it's getting cropped a little too short. Down here at the lower left, oh, I guess I didn't hide those fields. It's showing the actual room name over here as well, room name and number, but it's giving me a filtered data sheet automatically. In fact, if we go to schedules or if we go to views, it's actually making me, should be a women's room. Yep, women's room data sheet right there. So it's actually making the view, duplicating it from that data sheet and creating its own and doing my filters. The views themselves, it's made those, given them names. All of these have proper names throughout. So setting up the room data sheets is actually not very difficult. You simply go through and tell it programmatically which views you want. You systematically, I should say, tell it the views you want. Save your configurations if you have multiple types of layouts you'd like, and then you just go through and pick your rooms in a floor plan. You can pick as many as you'd like, and it'll, the more you pick, the longer it's going to take to generate, but you can pick as many as you'd like and have it actually generate all those sheets for you. You might want to come back through and tweak the positions just a little bit, but that doesn't take near as long as creating all the views in the first place, and at least they're generally laid out where they belong. All right, so let's talk about one other major thing that people often ask me in these demos. How do you get your hands on these tools if they're not already installed on your ribbon? Well, I'm going to go to ctcsoftware.com. CTC Software, if I can spell. No, I can't spell today. ctcsoftware.com right here. If you go to ctcsoftware.com, underneath Products, there is a BIM Project Suite 2019 option right now, since we're in the 2019 version of our tools. When you go to BIM Project Suite, you'll have the ability, if you don't already have the tools, to try it free for 14 days. You can also watch demo videos about any of the other tools that are included in here, as well as the room data sheets tool that we just talked about in this session. But yeah, you can certainly try it free. And if you have any questions, certainly let us know about that.